Bob Ellis on the drums. I'm part of Schaefer's top jazz orchestra. It's the best music school in the country.
The key is to just relax. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about what the other guys are thinking. You're here for a reason. Have fun. 5, 6, and...
I want to be great.
And you're not.
You got Buddy Rich here. Little trouble there. You're rushing. Here we go. 5, 6, and... Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know.
If you deliberately sabotage my band, I will gut you like a pig.
Oh, my dear God. Are you one of those single-tier people?
You are a worthless pansy ass who is now weeping and slobbering all over my drum set like a 9-year-old girl.
So how's it going with the studio band?
Good. Yeah, I think he likes me more now.
I push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity.
I want to be one of the greats. And because I'm doing that, it's going to take up more of my time. And this is why I don't think that we should be together.
I would never let him put my son through hell. Why would you let him get away with what he did to you?
There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
A 2014 film, Whiplash, a freshman named Andrew Neiman, played by Miles Teller, who is a prestigious drummer, attends a music academy called Schaefer Conservative Music. The conductor is Terrence Fletcher, played by J.K. Simmons, who uses intimidation and fear in his students in order to prove themselves. Andrew Newman is a child who grew up with only his father. His mother left him while he was a young boy. He starts off in this film at the second level of opportunity to play for his band. And eventually impresses the conductor, J.K. Simmons, into allowing him to play for the first position of the leading school. On his way up to the very last concert to prove himself, he runs into some problems with a song called Whiplash. He holds off everything and really focuses himself on this one song and practices every day consistently till literally his hands bleed. He was in the process. He was replaced once, and then earned a spot back after proving that he's able to play Whiplash by heart. At the end of the very last concert, he loses, on the way to his last concert, he loses his drumsticks and ends up having to leave and find his drumsticks at home. On his way back, he gets T-boned by a semi, but he is determined to show up to the concert and prove that he's right. So he ends up running back to the concert. At this time, he is fully covered in blood. His face. Again, he was in a car accident and he can barely run. He makes it at the concert and plays, but kind of dazes in and out while playing. The conductor, J.K. Simmons, then proceeds to stop the concert and and tells him to leave. He refuses and continues to play, and proves that with passion that anything is possible, and with hard work and determination that you can pretty much do anything you want. So, yeah.
In the movie Whiplash, the 2 sports psychology areas that were evident throughout the movie were motivation as well as arousal and performance. As far as motivation goes, Andrew Neiman, who is the main character of the movie, utilizes intrinsic as well as extrinsic factors to motivate himself to become a better drummer. Neiman is finding the motivation to succeed as a member of the studio band, as well as being extrinsically motivated by the band conductor Terrence Fletcher. The message that's being sent as far as motivation goes throughout the movie is that bullying someone into doing a task that they don't necessarily want to do is not going to motivate them to do that task or do better at it. This theme is evident throughout the entire movie. Terrence Fletcher, who is the band leader / conductor, utilizes bullying his musicians as a way to motivate them. Fletcher coaxes one band member to actually admit that he was playing in the wrong key in a scene of the movie when he actually was not. Fletcher was just furious at the fact that he didn't know he was playing in the wrong key. Later, Terrence Fletcher actually removes this musician from the band because he didn't know he was playing in the wrong key, and then later admits that to the entire band. And then later in that scene, Fletcher becomes mad at Neiman because he's playing the wrong tempo of the song, and he actually resorts to violence by throwing a chair at Neiman. Neiman actually later sheds a tear in front of the entire class because Fletcher's yelling at him about how he's incompetent of playing in the right tempo, and then he actually motivates Neiman to admit to the entire class that he is upset while he is crying. In that first scene explained above, Fletcher's motivation wasn't effective because in the end he did lose a musician from his band, which is not helping the band whatsoever. In that second scene that I explained that Neiman was upset, would this encourage Neiman to actually practice and get better, and he would actually practice until his fingers bled. So that's where the motivation came from that. For a majority of the storyline, up until the very end, Terrence utilizes bullying tactics, and then this does encourage Neiman to practice for hours and hours to earn the spot of core drummer in the band as opposed to the backup drummer that he was. By the last scene of the movie, Neiman had enough intimidation from Fletcher throughout this entire process, and he actually defied him by playing his own drum solo during a competition that Fletcher was conducting. And so he did actually end up showing Fletcher how great of a player he could be. I do strongly disagree with the bullying as a motivational factor. This tactic isn't good for anyone. Bullying is never the answer, and neither is violence. From a coaching aspect, personally, I would never use this tactic to motivate my team. I wouldn't never recommend this tactic to others. You should always personalize your motivational factors to each individual player to get them to play at their full potential. As far as the second sports psychology area goes, arousal and performance was also an evident theme throughout the entire movie. Every member of the band that Fletcher conducted could state that they were suffering from stress and anxiety from all of the pressure that Fletcher placed on them to be perfect, which in turn affected their overall performance in the band. Musicians, they were constantly stressed and anxious about perfecting their playing, and were constantly heckled by Fletcher if they made one minor mistake. It was apparent that Neiman was constantly stressed about keeping his position as the core drummer from the studio band, because throughout the movie it flashes to him practicing for hours and hours again till his fingers bleed until he could get this tempo correct. The message being sent about arousal and performance is that positive and negative stress can directly affect performance. The negative stress can hinder your performance, as well as the musicians in this case, and then the positive stress can actually help it. The movie showed this by Neiman dealing with his stress and practicing his pieces of music for hours and hours on end. Fletcher took his stress and anxiety out on others and was more extrinsic about that. He would yell, belittle his musicians, and even resorted to physical violence, as I talked about earlier with him throwing the chair at Neiman. These tactics that he used, Fletcher were sometimes effective, but usually not all the time throughout the movie. Fletcher's name calling and his violence was a way for him to relieve his stress. It would make him feel better when he took it out on his musicians. Neiman was a very internal character, as you could see throughout the movie, and from the very beginning it was evident. He wouldn't express his feelings toward others. He would take the anxiety out on his drum set. He was very stressed at one point when he cried, like I talked about earlier, in the studio, because of Fletcher yelling at him to play the song at the correct tempo. This was effective in making the audience feel how Fletcher and Neiman were feeling on the inside. I disagree again with Fletcher's tactics to deal with his stress and anxiety. And Neiman dealt with his stress and anxiety in a somewhat healthy way by trying to improve or better himself as well as his musical skills. Fletcher got his point across, but didn't go about it in the right way. And as a coach, you shouldn't make it apparent to your players if you're under stress or anxiety. Say there's a big game coming up. The players look up to you and will mirror whatever actions that you are taking. And so if you're angry with them and mad, then they're not going to be happy either. If the players are stressed, you should try talking to them about it and doing de-stressing activities.
For this part of our project, we were going to pretend that everyone in our group are college football coaches. We'd use the video during the preseason before games start in order to motivate the team to try their hardest during practices. We'd have the team watch the movie together as a team-building exercise, but the main goal of the movie would be to show them how motivational it is. Andrew, who you learned is the main character, had one goal in the movie, and that was to become the best drummer that he could be. He knew that if he practiced hard enough, he could do so. We can use this with athletes on a football team. If they practice as hard as they can, someday it will pay off and they will become the best football players that they can be. The movie really shows how important practice is. Andrew wasn't able to prove himself the first time he saw the instructor, Terrence Fletcher, because he didn't practice enough. Likewise, football players need to put as much effort into their practice skills before they will shine on game day. They won't be able to show up and only give 50% on practices and expect to be played on game day. In addition, by practicing as hard as they can, they'll become a better athlete and should feel more confident with their skills. Towards the end of the movie, Fletcher says, and I quote, "There are no two words more harmful than good job." This is because by saying good job to the person, who in our case is a football collegiate player, the athlete becomes content with their performance and is unable to truly use all of their skills. By critiquing the player and what they did wrong, they will be able to correct it instead of proceeding to do the same thing because they were told good job the first time. For some players, this may be discouraging and cause them not to want to continue. However, we are dealing with collegiate football players and they are expected to truly do the best that they can and should be able to take the criticism. But for those athletes who have the potential to do the skills correctly and not settle for good job, this will motivate them to dig down deeper and try harder next time, revealing and using all of the skills that they have. So after the football players watch the movie, we'll ask them as a team rhetorical questions like, are you practicing at your full potential? Are you trying to be the athlete that you can be? Or are you just waiting to hear a good job from the coaches and be satisfied with that? So, to continue to motivate the players, we can ask these questions every day of the preseason up until game day. This should give the players something to think about throughout the practice and continue to help them stay motivated each day. On game day, we should be able to tell who has been giving it all and who deserves to play on game day.